What's going on, guys? We're going to get started with the summary of markets week 45, and then we're going to get into the options watch list right after, as always. Let's get started. So SPY, basically, we talked about last week how you were probably going to look at the mid 370s. You're probably going to get there if there wasn't any bad news. But in the last week, we had a couple of announcements about stimulus. They were talking about how they were talking about stimulus, and you know the drill. They talk about stimulus, they say it's not good enough, the market goes down. So it tried to go up on stimulus news because they said that they were trying to release a lower bill. Trump wanted to get some stimulus checks out again. The Republicans wanted to push forward a lower bill. I think it was like 600 billion or 900 billion, somewhere around there. And the Democrats said it wasn't good enough, so the market started going down. So we pushed down, retested the ascending triangle high, and then you started bouncing off this level actually. So you retested this level. It looked pretty bearish. I actually took some puts to hedge. I didn't take a full size put position. I'm still net long, but I did take some puts when we started to break this trend line. So I kind of took shorts right on the bottom. We were actually up like 20% at one point, but now we're down about 30 because you are bouncing off that level. But that's okay because I took it as a hedge. So just in case that we were going to just absolutely blow through this level and nuke downward and fill this gap, that was what I wanted to hedge. I wanted to make sure that if the market just started bleeding, or maybe if we gapped below that support on the basically today's candle, if it opens up at 6 p.m., we gap below that support. That's what I wanted to protect myself from. So I do have some puts open. What I'm going to do, because I opened those puts and they're already taking a little bit of heat. If this does react bullishly to the stimulus news that we just got today, they said that they're going to unveil a new bipartisan $900 billion stimulus bill on Monday. So you would think the market's going to go up from that. I don't really know if it's going to, because like I was telling people in Discord, the market keeps going up off of them saying there's stimulus, but there has not been stimulus. So how many times can the market go up from them saying they're going to pass stimulus, but there actually not being any stimulus? The market's already climbed like 3 or 4 times from stimulus news, and we have not had a stimulus. So how many times can it do that? Is my point. So I would not be shocked if this thing gaps up today and then just absolutely gets obliterated. But we'll see. If it gaps up and it shows signs of strength, I am going to long futures to protect my hedge. Okay. So I do have a hedge open, but to protect it, I will probably open up some futures contracts to protect that hedge and limit the loss on that hedge, which it's going to take on Monday. But yeah, so it looks bullish right now. You would watch for this 364 level. I don't have the auto SR on here, but I can pull it up. This was the big level that we were watching. Let me show you. So this resistance right here, this auto SR level, it's a little bit lower on SPY. Actually, is that the fast line? I want to use slow. Yeah, so this is a little bit lower on SPY. Let me go to ES. I'll show you. This level on ES was right here, bounced off it almost to the tick. So this level right here is the big level to watch. If you start breaking below like 3620, it's going to get nuked down to that SPY gap. So if we go back to SPY here, let's get rid of the auto SR. This gap right here, or no, sorry, this one here, 357, that is what I'm targeting on my hedge. So if you break that support around 363, 362, watch that 357 level as your target, okay? If you don't break that level, very likely going to go into all-time highs, especially with the stimulus news. So tomorrow, if they do actually unveil the plan and it goes smoothly and they don't come out and say, you know what, we're not going to pass it, if it does, the talks push forward, then the market can go into all-time high very easily. And then keep an eye on the mid 370 targets that we were looking at last week, 375, 376, somewhere around there. But that's my analysis on SPY. Let's move on to gold. So gold, really nothing new, nothing crazy's happened since the last time we made that video. You can look at this little parallel channel that we're making. Very bearish downtrend here. You're kind of right around the middle of the channel. Until you start to break the top of this trend, you're not going to go anywhere. It's just going to keep trending downward and slowly bleed out. But with that new stimulus news, gold should react bullishly. Okay, so watch for the break of this local high. Watch for the break of that 50 moving average. Then you want to watch for the resistance that's going to come on this trend line here. If you're able to break through that, then you want to watch for that pivot around 1950 as your main target. And then obviously the 2000 range will give you a couple targets as well. But definitely don't get excited too early, because this has happened how many times so far? They say they're stimulus, they talk about it for a little bit, they say it's not good enough, the market goes down. Okay, so don't get too bullish just yet. But if you do start to break this channel, I would start to get bullish and then watch the 1950 to 2000 range as your targets. Okay. Moving on to oil. Oil is just continuing to uptrend. As I told you guys, this was breaking a very long consolidation, so it was most likely not a fake out. So this trend is going to continue. Any pullback above 43 is still bullish, but I wouldn't be being very bullish up here. I'd wait for a pullback. You do look like you're putting in a bear div. You can see that momentum is decreasing. Now, if this was decreasing and it was giving you like a bullish pennant, like an ascending triangle, a bull flag, any of those patterns, it would be okay to kind of be bullish and look for the next breakout to the upside. But in this regard, you are losing momentum as price is rising, so that is very bearish. So very likely going to pull back at least to the consolidation point, probably around like 44. But if it does pull back deeper, even to 43, I would still be bullish. Okay, so keep an eye on that bear div. I wouldn't be chasing longs right now. Watch for a pullback. All right, moving on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin looked pretty bullish. You were pulling back to the OTS trail. You got 3 buy signals off the OTS trail. You never broke it and closed below. So those buy signals are holding strong. And now look at what we're kind of putting in here. You're putting in like a bulldog off the high here. Now, typically, like I told you guys, bulldogs on highs they're still good patterns. They're just lower strike rates than if a bulldog was like on a downtrend. Like if it was down here, that would be a better bulldog. But it's still a good pattern. If you do push up here and you start to pull back, if it stays above like mid 18,000, like 18,500, that would still be bullish. Okay. So any pullback on the mid 1800s or 18,000s, excuse me, you should be looking for an all-time high break, and then 20,362 would be that target. Okay. Once this target is taken, that is the final target of this fib from way back here. Once that target is hit, we will adjust our fibs and we will look for newer targets. But I can preemptively do that just to kind of tell you guys if this thing goes absolutely ballistic, which Bitcoin typically does. I would look for like 22,000. 22,000 would be that next target to watch. But let's keep an eye on this 20,300 for now. So any pullback above 18,500 should be bullish. All right, moving on to Ethereum. Basically the same thing. You pulled back, tested the OTS trail. You could not close below it. Got a buy signal here, and now you're bouncing. Momo is also triggering a bear trap. So all these bears right here are starting to be trapped. Once you break this pivot here, you should easily be breaking into mid 600s. 629 is your final target. That was actually already hit. So we can go ahead and adjust our fib on Ethereum. And we're going to take the most recent impulse. And we can take the wicks here. So your main target would be the pivot, 367, 358. That's the fake out level. You break the fake out level, watch 716, 735. Okay? Those should be your targets moving forward. Ethereum looks pretty bullish as long as you maintain like mid 500s. But all right, that is the write-up. Let's move on to the options watch list. Couple of things we are watching. I'm still keeping an eye on Overstock. It could be putting in a bulldog here. You guys know I like bulldogs, especially on downtrends, as I was just saying in the write-up. So if this starts to put in, it already has the curved back. It already has the accumulation. So we could honestly buy this support and just anticipate the bulldog. Or we could wait for it to start pushing higher and then wait for that bulldog head to be in and then look for that breakout. But I'm still watching Overstock. If you put in that bulldog, that double bottom around $50, I think it's definitely a good buy. Peloton, I really like. You're holding this uptrend. You push down, held on to 110. As long as 110 holds, 122 is a very easy target. If you guys didn't see the news, Peloton is going to get added to the NASDAQ 100, so that should be enough to boost them into this gap fill. I've been telling you guys that 122 is basically pre-programmed for ever since it regained 110. So 122, very easy target. It honestly will probably blow through that target being added to the NASDAQ 100. So I would keep an eye on like 130, 131 as your further target, kind of that point of origin there. Keep an eye on that. UDN is the index. The dollar index. It's the bearish dollar. So this should go up if stimulus is passed on Monday or Tuesday. Whenever the talks happen, stimulus passed, the bearish dollar UDN should do well. So keep an eye on that. Snapchat hit our first target, hit our second target. $50 hit, $54 hit. Next target is $60. So moving on to like January and April, I think $60 is a good midterm target to have. The $60 contracts in April and in January are getting a lot of volumes. Keep an eye on that. Moving on, Big C was doing very well. You had a nice week. It kind of tried to break out of that kind of gap fill area, but you never really got enough momentum. Pulling back though. What I still like about Big C is the same thing I'm watching for Overstock. Big impulse down, accumulation, curved back, and now we're looking for that secondary bottom, okay? So watch for that bulldog on Big C. You start to find support around mid-60s. You probably will put in a bulldog double bottom, and you'll push higher, okay? Keep an eye on that. Let me actually set an alert on this so I don't miss it. Not sure why I changed my watch list there. All right, let's move forward. PLTR, as I told you guys, anything above 26 is bullish. Most likely will get all-time high. So that is still in play. Still above 26 holding support. You are putting in a little bit of a bullish triangle here, kind of a bilateral bullish pennant. But as long as you stay above that 26 area, I think this will break out bullishly. You are definitely losing momentum, but the trend line is flat at 15. As I've told you guys, when it does that, it means your trend is very, very strong. So it is flattened out at 15 even. That means the trend is very strong. Watch for that short-term momentum to start climbing, and this will break into all-time highs, no problem. Watch for 34, 37.50, should be pretty easy. Chegg, I've been telling you guys to watch Chegg for some time now. You filled the gap, that was your first target, pulled back into the gap, and then he pushed above it. Once you reclaimed it, I told you guys above 77, you will get 87. You're already halfway there, 82. You're halfway filled on that gap. Watch for the remaining gap fill up to 87. As long as you stay above 77 on the pullback, you should be bullish. Keep an eye on that. Neo here. I think I was watching like a 4-hour. You have somewhat of a 4-hour falling wedge if you ignore this nasty candle here. So keep an eye on Neo. If it remains above this wedge here, above like, let's say $40, you should be bullish. You'll break out of the wedge. Watch for $50 as your target. You might get a little bit of resistance at around 46. Moving on, Teladoc being a little choppy here. Let's actually make some more levels to play this because you are being a little choppy. I think as long as you get above this gap here, you should be pushing into these upper levels, kind of where we gap down. So keep an eye on 206. You get above 206, 220, 230 should be your midterm targets. A little bit of a decrease in volume here. You don't have a lot of bulls stepping in. So this could be a bear flag where you are kind of putting in this little channel to the upside after a big impulse down. And you're not really getting a lot of buyers. Okay, so be careful with that. I would wait until 206 breaks. You break 206, 220 would be the target. Moving on to Starbucks, I told you guys 103, 105 were your targets above 100. I told you guys 103 and 102 were the initial targets, so those were hit. Pulled back to 100. I told you guys as long as it stayed above 100, 103, 105. So that played out. Targets are hit, but they got upgraded a few times. Okay, so I extended some targets. If you guys were holding on to Starbucks, I would be looking at 107, 109, and then looking into 114 as well. So keep an eye on that. LW, nice little breakout trade here. I like this trade. No drawdown basically so far. I like 82 to 83 midterm target on that. Keep an eye on this pullback. buyers start to step in, watch for low 80s. Zillow, I told you guys, very bullish trade here. Break out of that wedge. You're going into 115, 120, then 125 was your upper target. Every single one of those targets has been hit, and you did not care about that little nasty sell-off that we had on Friday. So Zillow is extremely strong. I'd watch 130 next week. Probably very likely get 130 to 135. Let's take a look at where the fib targets line up. Yep, so 132, 135, just as I said, you broke the fake out level, so these breakout targets should be in play next week. Keep an eye on that. Moving on to Target, I like Target for this pullback here. If it pulls back to like 167 and you hold this pullback and put in kind of like a falling wedge, I think that's a good trade. Look for a retest of like the 180 range for like a midterm play. So watch this little support that's coming in. As long as you hold that support on the pullback, it should be bullish moving forward. All right, moving on to Square. I told you guys that Square above, what was that level? 215. You should get 220, 225. 220 has been hit. The pullback is staying above 215, so that's okay. As long as you stay above 215, 225, 227, should be very easy. Keep an eye on that. Jeffries, I really like this play. Where's my chart on this? It's an auto SR play, so we have some 4-hour buy signals coming in. We do have a lot of resistance on the daily, weekly, and I think even on the monthly. But once we start to break above 24, all of these resistance levels get broken. So as long as we hold this pivot on the weekly, the $23 range, break 24, I like this for a long-term play. Jeffries is a very slow-moving stock, so I would be playing shares on this. But I do like this above 24. All right, moving on. Honeywell is my biggest position, and I added onto it Friday. Honeywell is just a disgustingly bullish chart. As long as you stay above, I'd say like 210, this is very bullish. I'd watch 220, 230. This chart just looks so good that I keep adding onto it, and it's already my biggest position. But we'll see how it plays out. As long as you stay above that 210, I think I'm safe in that trade. I'm still holding eBay, but eBay's not looking too good. It needs to get back above 50. Get back above 50 and hold above that. 53 should be pretty easy. Rocket was looking fantastic until the market started selling off, and then you started failing that pivot. So it's starting to bleed out again. It's really pissing me off. It's taken forever. But if it does break back above like 2160, 22, this should be a disgustingly bullish chart. So keep an eye on that. Verizon, I did think it was going to pull back. I left room to add. I did not add on the pullback, but this little pink zone right here is where I'm looking to add to my shares. I was hoping it would go a little bit deeper and I was going to start adding to my shares, but we are bouncing right off the top of that add zone, so I'm not going to add here. If you do start to break out higher, I'm already holding some shares, so that's okay. RTX, almost an identical play to Honeywell. You have an ascending triangle. You are looking a little weaker than Honeywell, though. You can see how Honeywell has already broke out. RTX has not broke out yet. So we're already long. I did leave room to add, so if you do pull back to around $70, I am going to add to that trade, and I'm looking for about $80 to $90 on that trade, so a little longer term. NLS, I like the falling wedge here, putting in a very nice falling wedge. It did have a bull div, but it kind of turned that bull div off on the nasty sell-off on Friday. Very risky trade here, but you are holding the pivot. So if you hold that pivot, this wedge could still be extremely bullish. If you break $16, though, I will cut this trade. So I'm going to be keeping close eyes on that tomorrow. DraftKings, I really like DraftKings moving into 53. Above 53, it looks even better. So keep an eye on DraftKings next week. If you do start to break above 53, you could easily look for 60 to 65 midterm to long-term target. Keep an eye on this one. As long as you hold above like mid-40s, it looks pretty bullish. I think that's pretty much it for most of my plays here. Johnson & Johnson looks really good. I'm holding some leaps on Johnson & Johnson. Long-term weekly looks fantastic. You had a massive accumulation here, or sorry, distribution, and now we are breaking out of that distribution. We do still have some overhead resistance on these highs that we do need to clear, but once you start to clear the mid-150s, this thing can go much higher. Very long-term play. Obviously, Johnson & Johnson is a slow mover. Same thing with cloud, CLOU. It's a cloud computing ETF. Very long-term play. I took some leaps on this. As long as you stay above 26 on this weekly and monthly chart, it looks very, very strong. So keep an eye on that. All right, moving on to tech, and then we're going to close the video down. Microsoft putting in a little bit of a bulldog here. You bounce above 217, very easy 222, 226 targets. A couple of pivots above you that you could target. Putting in a very clear bulldog, double bottom off of a curved back. Look for that pop, maybe a pullback there. Boom, break through it, pivots, okay? So keep an eye on that. Apple, we're still holding Apple. It's kind of ping-ponging between two pivots, but once you get above 122, 125, you should get 130, 132. 132 is a gap fill and an auto SR level. So keep an eye on 130, kind of the low 130s, very easy target. Facebook, not really looking too good. You had a couple of lawsuits. They're trying to break Facebook up. They don't like that they bought WhatsApp. They don't like that they bought Instagram. So they're trying to break them up under some monopoly laws. So if they lose those lawsuits, then they are going to get hurt. So I'd be a little careful on Facebook. But if you do pull back pretty deep, obviously it's Facebook. Long-term buys, I think, are very, very easy. So like 250s, 240s, I think that would give you a really good dip buy. So keep an eye on that. Netflix, same story. Netflix is towards the bottom of a distribution. You could buy this for a long-term play. Short-term doesn't look too good. You still have a gap above you that you have not filled, about 525. So Netflix loves to fill its gaps. Very easy target. Also lines up with a pivot. So if you are bullish on Netflix short-term, 525, easy target. 556 would be the next target for a breakout. So keep an eye on that. Moving on to Amazon. Amazon has a very clear bilateral triangle here. You did break down on Thursday. We're not able to see continuation on Friday. Instantly reclaim the bilateral triangle. So that looks really good. If you see continuation of this bounce on Monday or Tuesday, get back above the ADMA, get back above the top of this triangle, you could easily start to see a long-term breakout into 33 and 34. Okay, so watch this level. You are showing a lot of momentum to the downside. So if you see any kind of continuation of the downside, I would look for about 3,000 to 2,900. But any reclaim of the top of this triangle should be a very bullish long-term position. Okay. Last but not least, Tesla. I told you guys last week that if Tesla stayed above 620, you were looking for 679. You were not able to stay above 620, but I did tell you as long as you stayed above 585, you could look for some accumulation here, or excuse me, distribution, and then you will push higher into that 679. But just be on the lookout for that 585, 573. Those will be supports. You break those levels, it's not looking good. The only target I would have moving forward is 679. But all right, guys, that was the summary of markets. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys are in Discord, I will see you guys tomorrow for our morning trading floor call. If you guys are not in Discord, I'll see you guys tomorrow for the stream at 3 p.m. Eastern. You guys have a good one. Make sure to like the video if you like the video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.